Hello, everyone, ladies and gents. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the ThyGap podcast. My name is Bogus Noog, and with me, as always, is
Being brute.
Brute. Welcome back to a momentous episode, a landmark episode. You
A
can say
milestone
a
episode.
milestone because this week we're doing It's Not Easy 100 episodes.
100 episodes is not easy at all, because we've
Nope.
been through that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Started it way back during the pandemic, during the lockdown,
Yep.
during the time of loneliness,
Oh, yeah.
stuck with your wives and families and your own thoughts.
And before we go into all of that goodness, what is also not easy is our socials, because not everyone in the whole world has yet subscribed. So it must be not easy.
Yeah. It's not
So,
easy, and
yeah.
that's why we are here to help them out.
Yeah, be brave, be courageous, and follow us. On Instagram, we are.
@_ThyGap,
On Twitter and Vero, we are.
@ThyGap,
And our email is
mindthygap@gmail.com.
fantastic. So, Brood, when we say it's not easy to do 100 episodes, what's the context, Brood?
So here's the context, Bogus.
Mhm.
We started it off, ThyGap podcast, as just something that we can share thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. And to know more further context, I think it's easy for people to just scroll through all the topics that we covered.
Mm.
And all those aforementioned reasons are why it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we mean. The 100th episode is not easy. And the journey itself
Mm.
that we have taken part in together,
Right.
hand in hand, step
Leg
by
in
step,
leg. Yes.
leg leg in leg, step beside step,
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears,
Yep.
hours of arguments, hours of disagreements,
Mm-hmm.
hours of difference of opinions, and also, ironically, hours of silence,
Yeah, of course.
that we both maintain between each other.
Mm-hmm.
All that
Professional
was
silence.
professional silence, white
Mhm.
noise,
Mm.
all that have contributed. Those are the things that we went through to
Yeah.
record 100 episodes.
And as far as
So we're just going to give light. We're going to throw some light, whatever little light that we have in our lives.
Mhm.
We're going to throw that light on these in this episode. So we
Yeah.
start afresh from darkness.
Absolutely. And as part of the context, it's also important to mention that we're doing this in the 99th episode and not in the 100th episode itself. So that's a
Yeah.
important thing to remember.
Yeah. And it's in anticipation. It's more in anticipation of the 100th episode rather than this being the 100th episode itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And why are we doing it as a 99th episode? Because it's not easy to do it as a 100th episode. Guys, it's in the title.
Yeah. It's like right there.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
It should be self-explanatory. So, Brood,
Yeah.
now we can move on to the next part of our template. Why is this not easy? Why has it not been easy at all for us?
I mean, just think about it. If anybody sits down with a pen and paper,
Mm,
and if they have to write 100 topics,
yeah.
which doesn't include current affairs,
Which doesn't include politics.
politics,
Yeah.
which doesn't include movies or sports or any of that, right?
Well, a little bit of sports was included.
I mean,
just a
there's
little
only
bit.
so much you can do with about
Sprinkling.
passion.
Yeah.
Sprinkling, right? So, which doesn't include all of these. And you still have to come up with topics to speak on,
Mm,
and there are 100 of them.
yeah.
Just do it as a social experiment.
That's it.
You will know the answer. We don't even have to tell it out.
It's an experiment on other people. It's an experiment on ourselves as well.
Yes, it's a question of capability. There is identity crisis that is involved.
Yeah.
There is a direct challenge of intellect
Yeah. Yeah.
where there it goes to a point where you're like, do I still need the help of a dictionary to figure out topics? Yeah. So that is one reason why it's not easy. It's very difficult to come down to the recording
Mhm.
week after week
Mm.
with all kinds of things happening around us. And I think the first thing, Bogus, I genuinely pat each of us. for
Yeah,
that.
let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't pat ourselves enough, I think. We
Nope.
need to be a little more self-involved,
Dusty
self-absorbed.
shoulders. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
dust them off. Yeah.
The thing that we don't do enough is, I think, we don't appreciate ourselves for the fact that we kept turning up.
Which was going to be my next point. The other reason why it's not easy is the sheer consistency it demands.
Yeah.
And this was actually brute before we started, while we were starting, even before we started, when we were doing the human trials
Right.
to sort of figure out our way around, the whole podcasting thing.
Yeah.
Can we do it? How would we do it? So while we were doing all that also, this was the one thing that was rattling in my head as, what would be the biggest roadblock or the biggest challenge for us, which would be the consistency. Would we have it in us
Yeah.
to turn up again and again knowing both myself and you.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Knowing our personalities
Exactly.
in person, like in reality.
Exactly. We haven't done the discipline. It's not easy episode yet.
Yeah.
And I don't think we did
I don't
procrastination
think
also,
we
right?
have the eligibility to do that episode
But we
also.
will. We will
We will.
still
We'll
do it, of
definitely will.
course.
One who can't do teach, bro.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. But I don't think we did procrastination also, right? I don't think we did
No,
that yet.
we did plan to do procrastination.
So
but
two biggest
we-
things.
but we stayed true to the topic where like
Yeah.
we need to we kind of let's put it off
Yeah.
for some more time.
And Brute, what would you say? How challenging has it been for you? Because we started in 2020, June, July,
Yeah.
like, just as the pandemic
Yeah.
started.
Right.
And a lot has happened. 2 lockdowns, 3 variants,
Right. 2
Have-
vaccines and a booster.
2 vaccines and a booster. It's
All
like-
these things later.
Yeah. It's like
Where are we at now?
it's like 2 sequels and some kind of a special.
It's like 4 weddings and a funeral.
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in between having to move, like physically between places, having to travel
Yeah.
off and on
Yeah.
for work. How challenging has it been for you? Just in general with the English podcast, with all these topics. And then
Mhm,
after you're done with that, tell me how much this second podcast added to it, if anything.
So I'll tell you, even before I go there, I want to add another thing, like how you thought that consistency would be a roadblock.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know if I've ever been so transparent about this, but I did have my apprehensions of the fact that would this podcast be the reason why we might end ThyGap?
Oh, that's
That
a
was
great
my
point.
fear.
Yeah.
That was my fear.
Because
my
that's
fear
possible,
was,
right?
yeah, we touched the laser beam almost like a bunch of times. You're
Yeah.
laughing about it now, but it was pretty intense in the middle.
Yeah.
But that was my bigger fear.
In the
Like,
beginning,
my
a
bigger
little
fear
bit,
was,
in the middle, a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, like I think it's still some cold vibes with every 5 minutes of delay of starting the recording.
Yeah.
You bastard, still didn't turn up. But my fear was that, to
Oh,
be
okay.
very transparent, my fear was, will ThyGap as the ideology die because of this podcast, which was initially not in the foray, right? It was much behind the shelf for us.
To me,
So that
yeah.
was my biggest fear, more than the consistency and whether we'll turn up every day or not. But this was my bigger fear.
I find that quite interesting, actually, that even though the two of us, we've, had such long conversations about ThyGap as a whole,
Yeah.
and specifically the podcast also, and
Yeah.
we've been on the same page for so much of it, but
Yeah.
still, it seems like both of us had two different biggest concerns
Yeah.
about the
I'm
whole
a
thing.
more people's person, more than the process person, as you know. I'm only looking at the damage that might happen in the people who are involved,
Yeah.
rather than, I don't care if the process is a little here and there. That's fine with me,
Mm,
as long as the process is intact.
mm.
I'm not a person, like I don't. It's just, this has become like an introspection episode, but
Yeah.
we have our fortes, and that is again something on the brighter side. I think that is something that we've always counted on, also saying that, okay, fine, if it comes to this problem,
Mm,
Bogus will solve it. If it comes to that problem, Brute will solve it. And that
Right.
is another thing which actually helped us in being consistent,
mm.
right? Where we knew exactly who would pull who
Out of the rut.
Up.
Yeah.
out of the rut.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, one of the reasons. So it's just that the bigger picture should not get tarnished because of one activity. So that was the fear. Now, coming to how challenging it was, I think anything worth investing your passion into is going to be challenging,
Yeah.
right? Like
It's not
personal
going to be
scenarios.
easy, you mean.
It's not going to be easy. It's never easy. Passion, it's not easy. I think we should
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Like we never did passion. Thanks for I think this is the one topic, one added to the list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was off the bat very clear that it was extremely passionate. We both are very passionate about ThyGap,
Mm.
more so for the ideology that ThyGap stands for. And
Yeah.
the one thing that was very clear was that at no cost should ThyGap suffer.
Right.
If it happens momentarily, that is fine.
Mm.
But at no point should ThyGap go out of sight.
Mm.
And was it challenging? Absolutely. Like you name it, and that was a challenge.
Yeah.
Office, our employment source of income,
Yeah,
big
yeah.
challenge. Not knowing how ThyGap will take care of us, like financially
Mm.
till date, that's a huge challenge. We still don't know the answer for that.
Yeah.
Like I said, running out of topics, we don't know how deep the well is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that fear of it might dry up at any given point was a huge challenge. You know, fighting that demon
Yeah.
was another challenge.
Yeah.
The sheer fact that learning the equipments, figuring out the templates, getting to
Oh yeah.
make ourselves comfortable with what we do. I think big kudos to you also in how do we manage the background work,
Mm.
ensuring everything goes on time. All these things, like, you know, there's a long list. Like I said, pick any reason. Pick that. Oh, was electricity a challenge? Like, absolutely. We did record in darkness, like
Yeah.
two, three
Yeah.
episodes.
Yeah. No power.
No, no power. Fucking me traveling all the time because of my work
Mm-hmm.
and still trying to make it up. The only challenge that we didn't have in a way was somehow making time. I think I mean I wouldn't even say that. The only challenge that we had was probably to an extent as to how we both had this blind faith that yeah, the other guy would turn up.
Right.
So I think that was big. That was the only solace in the whole picture. What were your challenges? What do you think was challenging for you?
My biggest challenge is, of course, I find it quite easy for me, like personally, to start on something. You know, like, oh yeah, you have a idea that's interesting, that's nice, and you want to get started on it. Fine, I can get started, but it's the follow through. You know, it's that consistency and is that turning up again and again. That is
Yeah.
where I've had such a huge problem.
Yeah.
But I guess behind ThyGap specifically, there is so much more motivation and there is so much more interest that it naturally eats up a lot of my mind share.
Right.
And it's constantly going on at the back of my mind. I'm always thinking about it.
Right.
So that made turning up a little easier. Challenging for me, this whole figuring out the, you know, audio, what needs to be like what is the proper protocol for, you know, broadcasting audio
Yeah.
in a way where people will actually enjoy it, because audio can very quickly kill people's interest if it is bad.
Correct.
So it's important to get that right. Then the next
yeah.
one was the editing part of it. Like I've lost
Yeah.
count how many times I doze through editing sessions.
Yeah.
I have to keep waking myself up, then continuing, then finishing, because it's so boring
Yeah.
that I tend to doze every time almost.
Yeah. The mundane work again is I think is a
Yeah.
huge challenge. The mundane work is a big challenge. What did you think have we sacrificed, Bogus, to make this consistency stand? Do you think you have sacrificed anything to make this consistency work?
Yeah, definitely sacrificed something that I don't think I should say. Like, you know,
is this going to be like 18 plus material suddenly, like 18 plus content?
You know, it's like work related a little bit and then personal a little bit. You know, there have definitely been some, but that's not because it was ThyGap that was taking it away. It's because I'm still not improved enough where I can balance all of those seamlessly. And the reason why I had such a concern about consistency is because I've usually had that trend of being able to start something but then not following it up. And there are so many other responsibilities and obligations we have, right, usually in our day-to-day lives. So some of those have suffered a little bit for me to be able to hold true on the ThyGap end. And that's again a personal deficiency which I'm working on to try and, you know, improve so that I'm able to function smoothly between all of these responsibilities.
Right. You know, in a very tangible way, I think we have sacrificed together. It's not just from my side, but together, I think we've sacrificed probably the last 100 weekends, you know?
Yeah.
I think we've truncated, what do you call it? Like we've cut down on our weekend activities drastically. People make plans on their weekends and we both like idiots are sitting and like preparing for shit and like, you know, getting ready for that evening.
Yeah, I definitely see your point and I agree with it, but partially, because if I think what would I have been doing if not for, you know, these recording sessions? I wasn't doing anything much great, you know. Like,
no, true. I mean,
time.
like, but at the same time, see, it's almost like 1.5 day out of 2 days of weekend. That goes into it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just we record late into the night and then by the time you wake up on the next day, you're done with half of the day. So there's only so much. So you're already like, okay, fine, you know, it's been a long day. So I think I mean, I am realizing it now that I'm out of the town, traveling on work.
Yeah.
Now I see that when I look around people of our circle, of our peers and all, how they go about their weekend. And I'm like, okay, this is what a normal weekend looks like. I forgot how this normal weekend looks like.
Yeah.
You know? So that's when I'm able to compare and say, oh, you know what? Actually, I never thought that we've sacrificed a lot, but no, we did sacrifice a lot.
Yeah,
We just didn't realize it because we were so excited about it. And maybe that is what, when people say, when you do something that you're really passionate about, like nothing looks like a big price tag.
It's a labor of love.
It's a labor of
pretty
love.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why I feel like, I agree with what you said to some extent. To other extent, me personally, I was not really making such a great use of my time. My activities, weekend activities before ThyGap already were getting to a point where they were too repetitive. There was hardly anything new unless I traveled somewhere else.
Yeah.
Being in Hyderabad, it was getting a little too repetitive actually.
Yeah.
And I found myself like almost stagnating. Whereas this recording session, even though it is, the back end of it, the editing is mundane and it is boring, it is mind-numbingly boring. But still, it is a labor of love, and the recording sessions by themselves have never felt like a drag or a burden.
Yeah.
While we are in it, it's fun always.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we vaguely tasted what people mean when they say like, I'm following my passion. I wouldn't say we've like fully tasted
No.
it.
There's a lot more in ThyGap.
Yeah, but we have tasted it enough to get really excited about moving forward.
Yeah.
And as we speak, by the way, sacrifice, it's not easy, is another topic that we should work about.
ThyGap, subscribe.
You saw how build it up.
Yeah.
Did you see it coming, Bogus?
No, I did not see it.
100 episodes, you still don't see it coming from me.
And that is why you should subscribe and share.
Yeah. And share, guys. That's what you get.
But
what was your second question? I forgot your second question.
My second question was, how much did the second podcast add to it?
In terms of the challenge?
If anything, the challenge, the burden.
Yeah, the second podcast, the ThyGap Telugu podcast, where we do movie reviews in our own style.
Yeah.
I think the one thing is it takes even more time.
Which is the more popular.
Which is much more popular. Is the bigger problem.
Yeah,
right?
Is the podcast.
And also the tricky part is you're forced to sit through what you don't like. We are forced ourselves to sit through something which we normally wouldn't enjoy.
Right.
So that's like an additional responsibility which we took, and God only knows what confidence we had taking that up. But sitting through some of the movies that we generally wouldn't have even bothered looking in that direction, we've sat through them. Sometimes we would watch more than one movie in a week.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see material to speak about, or we didn't see something which is worthy to talk about.
Right.
So we're forced to do that. And once again, I think it's a very, very tricky road that we went through. Like you said, it took up more mind share.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's not just one episode. We're recording 2 episodes.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a struggle, and 2 different languages.
Yeah.
Where if we look back at the initial episodes that we did in the second podcast, I was really, really like shell-shocked that I couldn't speak in my mother tongue so fluently as I can speak in English.
Exactly.
Because my thoughts were not translating.
Yeah.
My thoughts were not coming out as they were coming in my head.
Right.
And I had very little confidence. I wouldn't say confidence, but I had very little.
You had your doubts.
I had my doubts.
Yeah.
I had my doubts as to how good it can be. But I think that the fact that we took a leap of faith, and turned out to be much more, aggressively popular.
Oh yeah,
among both the podcasts.
Yeah. And that's
which is a little disappointing personally.
Oh no,
to be honest,
it's like a jackpot actually from my perspective. It's something that we just wanted to try out. Like, hey, probably we should do it in Telugu also, because it is our mother tongue. And then we wanted to record one episode just to try, just as a human trial. And that ended up being our first episode.
Yes.
That we published, which it just went from strength to strength. And when you mentioned the kind of confidence that we had, like a leap of faith, I feel like it's the kind of confidence that Zoomers tend to have without having anything. Like nowadays, like when they're 14 years old, they seem to have, but us as millennials, we have to wait years and years to get that blind confidence.
Kind of ludicrous, delusional confidence.
Exactly. But ultimately, we have to bide our time to get that.
In terms of challenging, yes, obviously, it just doubled the effort.
Yeah.
Right. It doubled the fear of missing out. It doubled the fear of not getting something that week to do a podcast on.
Yeah.
It shrinked our time window much shorter.
Yeah. Because if you take 2 steps back, bro, Radhika, and
Radhika.
if you actually look at it, it is insane what we've been able to pull off, considering the kind of concerns both of us had about the first podcast, this podcast.
Right.
It is insane to think that now every week there is 2 new episodes going out, like you said. In 2 different languages, totally different content, almost you can say diametrically opposite in terms of, content or treatment.
Yeah.
As in both are comedy. But
That's the underlying secret.
That's the underlying secret. It's just a different kind of comedy.
Yeah.
But it is insane because there's so many podcasts that I watched that got popular that still show up in top 10, top 20, charts or whatever. But they stopped publishing for like, I don't know, months. And in between episodes also, there were weeks, there were months. It was, there's so many podcasts where that consistency kind of, it gets impacted. And that's the reason why I was thinking, okay, if everyone else is having this challenge, knowing ourselves, knowing our personalities, like, probably this is going to be where we stumble is what I thought. And it's been, a revelation actually.
And I don't think any other podcast is doing this, which is releasing two episodes a week in two different languages, and which is like completely new content. It is completely unrelated content. It's not the same content, I understand like something, being told in one language and just getting it dubbed or something like in another language.
Right.
On the same topic. It's not the case. It's like completely two different verticals, categories in sense of what we talk on these episodes. And we've been doing it quite some time together. I think it's more than about like 30 weeks that we've been doing it for, give or take. Since Jan, right? It's almost turning out to be a year now. That's like 54 weeks, give or take.
Wait, what is since Jan?
It's since Jan, since we started the second
No, that was
November. So we are hitting like close to like 54 weeks now.
Yeah.
Right, 50 weeks, give or take. So again, for 50 weeks, it's not a joke. It's ludicrous that we have actually pulled off doing that consistently. But on the brighter side, what did the second podcast do was it ensured we recorded both.
Right.
It gave us that additional accountability or responsibility to. We can't think of another word.
I was just thinking additional shit in the pants. Like
shitting
our
absolutely.
pants like twice. 2x now.
Yeah, 2x of fear, basically, right? Of, oh no, we've committed to this now. How the hell, we have to make it happen.
We have to stand to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So that was again a huge thing.
The other reason I think it was not easy, Brute, is the direction of it. Like we talked about consistency.
Yeah.
But you want to start a podcast. How clear are you about what is it actually about? What is the backbone? And what is the North Star?
Yeah.
Because if that is not clear, then also you could actually run out pretty quickly when you don't know exactly what you're after. And for us, one thing we knew was, probably let's talk about things that usually go unmentioned. Like how come we're seeing so many videos or so many video essays on a particular topic like motivation or whatever? Mm-hmm. How come it tends to be so repetitive? How come, but there are so many things that we know which kind of go under the radar a little bit.
Right.
People don't usually talk about it a little bit. So why don't we shine a light on those? Even in cricket, we saw that with Border Gavaskar Trophy, how repetitive the coverage was.
Right. And the Dark Swarm series.
Yeah, the Dark Swarm series also. Like the same talking points, because everyone wants to rush to be the first one to put it up online. So please tell me.
Please tell me. Please share. What were you going through?
Yeah.
Please. Yeah, and it was what shook us was the people who did it.
Right.
More than the rat race.
Right.
It was the rats that were participating in the race that shook us. Like, you don't have to worry about it. Like,
you are an established guy.
Yeah.
People love you all over the world.
Right.
Not just India.
I would have been more happy personally if actually you waited for all this to die down and then come out and say like, you know what, this is what I feel.
Exactly.
Right.
Because you can.
You can. You have that. You made us do it. You put more responsibility on ThyGap to fucking do it.
Exactly.
Out of all the people.
That was really the main thing. Yeah. To see who was actually getting dragged into it when there was absolutely no need for it.
Right. And that was pretty saddening, to be honest.
Yeah. The other reason, like in terms of direction, was of course, we want to talk about things that are not mentioned usually, that go under the radar a little bit. The other thing that we talked about, dude, I remember in the initial days when we were thinking about the podcast, is the fact that, shit, man, when we were young, when we were in college, if there was someone around to kind of talk about these things, to kind of nudge us.
Introduce, like probably just as simple as introduce us to
these concepts and, these secrets that we tend to learn only much later in life. What if we had a mentor figure or a big brother kind of figure who kind of nudged us and introduced us to this and could have ended up saving maybe 5 to 10 years of our life in terms of, having to learn it ourselves. And that was one of the reasons why we thought, let's just talk about these things openly so that if someone at that age group hears or listens to it, then
Yeah.
maybe that, it has that effect where
Right.
they get to hear something before their time, and it
Right.
becomes like an advantage, like a shortcut.
Correct. But also we did track back and said why we didn't have that mentor or that guiding force was because we were everywhere. We were not sitting in one place,
Yeah.
where somebody can catch hold of us and say like, dude, boss, these are the things.
Yeah.
And we're like, nah, we're going to play bet matches in street and all that. So we had the part of it had to be blamed on us, and we have to
Of course, yeah.
have
Always
to
personal
yeah,
responsibility comes into it, for
it
sure.
comes in first. The other biggest challenge, because as you were talking, I realized is that temptation of biting the forbidden fruit.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, I think there were times where we were ridiculously, with enormous desperation, we were absolutely tempted to go down the, well-trodden path, go talk about what would get you eyeballs,
Oh, yeah,
what
yeah.
would get those ears.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, it struck me when we were talking about that rat race thing, because it was not easy. It's very depressing when you put all that effort and initially we would not get that many downloads, or like,
Yeah.
we would not get any kind of response or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
We almost were at one point tempted to maybe, just for a while, why don't we
Yeah.
just, piggyback
Right.
what is being
Ride the wave a
asked
little
for,
bit. Yeah.
ride the wave a little for
Yeah.
our convenience.
Tell me also,
Tell me,
please.
please share with us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that was another huge challenge. I can confidently say now that we have passed that point. We don't see the need of biting the forbidden fruit now.
Yeah.
Which allows us to maintain our authenticity, good or bad, like it or not, whatever it might be, right? But it did allow us to maintain the authenticity. And that was again a huge challenge, which I now feel that we have with the second podcast coming up. I think we've ride that wave. But we did bite the forbidden fruit in the second podcast.
Oh, we
not
ate
the
just
shit
bit
out of it.
Swallowed the whole damn tree.
As it is.
Yeah.
There's no more fruits left. We've had it all.
That's it. And that's the reason why I still feel, there's no imbalance. There's no feeling of, there's no FOMO, because whatever satisfaction, one tends to get with a lot of views or a lot of downloads, we're sort of getting it in our Telugu podcast.
Yeah.
There's a lot
that gave us a cushion too.
Yeah, there's a lot of healthy interaction with followers as well, like back and forth, they keep writing in. Whereas on the English one, hardly anyone.
And this makes us doubt the literacy rate of India.
Yeah. There's hardly anyone who writes in for the English one. But even then, I've been okay with it. Yeah, because there is some acceptance. You look at the topics that we're talking about, not exactly popcorn entertainment, not exactly what
comedy.
I would.
It's not exactly comedy.
Not exactly comedy. It's comedy-ish. Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
If you laugh.
Yeah. If you think tragedy is also a part of comedy, then it is comedy.
It's like the great Don Rickles, saying, it's only funny if you laugh.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's like, if we manage to laugh at some point, we'll consider it comedy.
That's it. Yeah.
Very low expectation setting.
So yeah, the nature of the topic, the kind of conversations we've had.
Yeah.
It's not exactly, we understand, like it's not exactly someone who wants just a jolly ride, or drive in the car. This is not something you want to be listening to. Yeah, this makes you stop and hold your head, down in your hands. Feel the
this
dark
makes you laugh at
clouds.
your life.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
It makes you laugh like Joker, basically.
Is.
Like everything is pointless.
Aha, he, ho, ho.
Yeah,
ha,
exactly.
Ha. I thought only my life was bad.
Yeah, and that's okay because we get that somewhere else, fulfilled somewhere else in the second podcast.
We have our hack for that.
Yeah.
Do you know the other challenge that we faced and we still have it?
What?
Is growing to other mediums of other formats of this podcast.
Right. And also the socials.
That is something. The socials is a big challenge where we are already so taken up with so many things.
Like there's so many ideas always, but it's just a matter of bandwidth. Like
the bandwidth.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to join the team for no pay and just do some mundanity job.
Yeah. And you're based in Hyderabad and you live in a 5-kilometer radius.
Prerequisite.
But you may ask why? It's all virtual, right? It's just like that. Yeah.
No, we need that touch and feel.
Yeah,
we are the touch and feel old school guys.
Yeah. This needs KYC.
Like legit printed out
We need your thumbprints, like
Yeah.
physical thumbprints. Right?
We don't believe in signatures. They can
Nope.
be forged.
Nope. Yep.
We have high security stuff going on here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. ThyGap, subscribe
And share 100 times.
100 times. What else, bro? All right. Let me ask you this: 100 episodes done. What do you see going forward? What do you see going ahead?
Absolute darkness, like how it was in the first episode. The amount of willpower it takes to accept our current
Yeah.
circumstance,
Yeah.
it's mind blowing.
It's just bleak. It's like the kind of hopelessness that you experience at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah.
Like everything is shit, guys. We're all
Yeah.
gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that continues like can multiplied by 100 times.
Yeah.
That's our experience every weekend when we sit down for recording.
Mm-hmm.
What do I see going forward? I see this to be a great question.
Oh wow.
That's all I see. That's all I can
Wonderful.
see.
Then I think probably we should revisit this question in the 200th episode.
In the 200th episode,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And take this answer as a benchmark.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. But I'll ask you this, Bogus. Following the template of it's not easy. What is the most important thing according to you? In the whole process of us recording the episode, what is the most important thing for you to come to the recording? Not motivation and all. I'm
Okay.
asking like, what is it that one thing that you prep or, what is your ritual or whatever it is?
Wow. Okay, that's a great question. But before that, also speaking of the template of It's Not Easy, what made, the journey of these 100 episodes a little bit easier was actually the template of It's Not Easy.
Yeah.
Because without that, it was kind of an uphill challenge. But the template itself kind of streamlined the process by quite a lot. But now what are your thoughts on that?
No, I absolutely second that. I think It's Not Easy actually made it a little easy for us to steamroll forward and kind of make our own path somehow.
And also to introduce some amount of, what do they call it? When you have a structure that repeats itself every week, then it makes it a little more comfortable for your audience also.
Yeah, it allows you to settle in.
Yeah, in the sense that they become familiar now. Oh, I understand.
Correct.
This podcast,
Right.
it operates like this. This is the structure. This is what I can expect. And that also came from feedback, audience feedback. So, we're thankful for that as well.
Yeah, which was 3 people.
Yeah.
But number is not what we count. We don't care about numbers unless it's in currency.
It's their age. That's what we count.
It's age. Yeah. We worry about the age and more so in the gender also.
Yeah. Oh, definitely more so. Yeah.
But for me, it was, yes, I definitely second you. I think It's Not Easy made it easy for us.
Awesome. To answer your earlier question now, like what was the main thing going into a recording?
Yeah. What's like your important thing? What's that one important thing going into the recording? Coming on time or like...
Well, the one thing was, please God, let it happen. It needs to happen. Like the recording needs to happen. Please, let's not postpone. Let's not have any last minute emergencies crop up to the surface. Can we please just have our time? Because there's been so many unexpected, out of the blue, from left field kind of incidences.
Right. From the blind side.
From the blind side kind of things that have been happening. So that was the first thing. Please, first of all, let it happen. And then the next thing was that... and this is something that I also mentioned in the Creativity It's Not Easy episode. Check it out. That was, when you have an overall North Star, it helps in making day-to-day small micro decisions also, because with every decision, you just have to check again with your North Star, whether it is also aligning with that or not. Which alignment, not easy, great, bro.
Not easy, guys. Alignment, recent. McNulty feet.
Oh, yeah. And so that checkpoint with the North Star, constant checkpoint, makes it easy to not decide on the micro thing. The micro thing you'll decide as per your own measure, like what is the right decision to take. But then this is validation. Okay, I decided this micro situation. This is my verdict. But does my verdict align with my overall North Star that I have for 2 years down the line, or, whatever it is?
Right.
And that kind of North Star check, every recording, for me was... Is it going to check off these boxes that we thought about, that we talked about extensively? One is, are we talking about things that usually go unmentioned?
Right.
Or are we just repeating whatever other people are talking about?
Right.
That is the one thing. The other thing is this really helpful? Is this really adding value?
Correct.
And the third thing is, is this authentic to us? Like,
Mm-hmm.
even if we are talking something which is either using someone else's quotes, or
Yeah.
we're talking about something historical, or we're
Right.
talking about something people have already said,
Right.
are we adding our own, flavor to it? Are we bringing our
Mm.
own personality to it?
Right.
And are we offering a different kind of value of that sort? If all these boxes are checked, then for me, like, I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
Well, for me, the most important is that initial cigarette smoke chat.
The
That sets the
pre-recording.
tone. The pre-recording
Yeah.
ritual that we do, where we have that unlimited smoke chat.
Yeah.
That really sets the tone, because for me, it allows me to disconnect with all that is non-ThyGap.
Right.
It allows me to disconnect with my work, what's happening at home, what's happening around, what I have to do tomorrow.
Right.
Right. And that settles me into that role of the podcaster. So that is really, really important for me. And I've also seen that every time we couldn't do that, I don't feel that, it came out really well, or I put my points properly across and all that.
Yeah.
So that warm-up session, if you have to say, that cardio session that we do,
Yeah.
with cigarettes and smoke and, all kinds of drinks, not alcoholic, obviously, but
yeah. Mountain water, spring water, well water.
yeah, spring water and Evian and all that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
cough syrup, sometimes antacids,
Yeah.
That is really important for me, right? Because that sets the tone of, I get a sense of how the recording can be, how free flowing the recording can be,
Right.
based on that initial 15-20 minutes of prep. And the other thing is the repetition, the
Right.
repetitiveness, that I sometimes feel that, I think we are talking about the same thing again in a different way. That's it. The underlying, not how it's structured. I'm not talking about the template and all. But we have gone across topics which are very close to each other.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. But we also have a sense that they sound similar, they look similar, but they have completely different applications. They have completely different usages.
Right.
And when we do such topics, there is sometimes I constantly try to keep in mind that, okay, I should not repeat this. I should not repeat what I said then. But we are guilty. I think we are guilty of sometimes referencing them, or like bringing them as it is, or repeating that with little of change here and there. That is another important thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because for me, maybe a few years back, I would have fully agreed and used the word guilty as well. But nowadays, I don't know why I've made my peace with that repetitive aspect. Because I think to some extent, repetition is important and it has its value, because I co-host a podcast where we talk about different kinds of topics, where we talk about life stuff,
Right.
and there's so much wisdom in all of that. But then does that mean we are experts, of that, all that we said? It's not. I realize what I need to do in terms of best practices. I realize that if I plan the next day ahead, the night before itself, my following day will be smooth. And if I organize myself in that way, then there's not going to be uncertainties. If there is recording that needs to happen, have I done all the required prep for it? Have I edited in time, to make sure?
No. So let me just stop you there. When I said repetitiveness, not because of all this.
No. My point actually
My intention.
I didn't get to the point. Sorry, I kind of dragged there. But my actual point was, even though I know, the fact that, discipline is important, even though I know that it's better if I prepare for the following day tonight itself, there are constantly times where I miss out on those. So I have to keep repeating that to myself and reminding that to myself. And I think that's the concept of the mantra. A mantra is basically meant for repetition.
No, the reason, that's why I was stopping you. The reason was not about, the issue is not about repeating it.
Okay.
In itself. The issue that I have of putting it in the same way is, if we do that, I sometimes have that feeling we might lose, or we might not be able to show the differentiation between both these aspects, which are very similar in nature.
Got it.
And that is why it is important for me to see, like, what is the other way of explaining this?
Right.
Or what is the other way of I can put it in? Not because I'm an expert, not because that I follow or anything. It's just plainly to highlight the differentiator, like how different these are, though they look very similar.
The nuance,
I think one of the things that we did,
the two.
Sorry?
The nuance between the two, you mean?
Yeah, the nuance, basically.
Right.
Like that is, like, you remember, I don't know if you remember this, the whole contradiction we had of the difference between confidence and courage.
Yeah.
We knew that they were different. when we speak.
Yeah.
But how do we say it when we have to put why courage is important,
Mm.
right? When we have to list out the reasons versus why confidence is important.
Mm.
They can't be important for the same reason. If we show that both are important for the same reason,
Mm.
then the nitty-gritty would not be followed, or that would not come out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that was something which was important for me as to how we present these aspects on these topics.
True. And
That
on
was
those,
another thing that I generally put my head into.
oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. And on those lines, it reminded me of loneliness and solitude.
So loneliness and solitude.
I think
Yeah.
it's a great example because in that episode, until the very end, we could not actually agree on what we were talking
Yeah.
about. And we
Yeah.
kind of left it like that. And I like that episode more because we didn't try to force some kind of an agreement. You know, it
Yeah.
was just going in such a way where we had totally different perspectives on how
Yeah.
we were looking at these things.
Correct.
And we kind of left it like that. Even though it was long, it kind of ends inconclusively. Maybe we'll do a sequel, who knows?
Right.
You know,
right.
but in that episode itself, we didn't try to force anything for appearance's sake. Like,
Correct.
that's what happened, and we kind of left it that way. And
Yeah.
I actually like that episode more because of that fact.
And there's so many such examples. I think losing was another. It's not easy losing versus failure.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy evil versus fear.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many such examples that when we sit and discuss and prep, my whole thinking used to be like, it's really important for me to ensure that when I present these points, the differences get highlighted. Because if I repeat, and yes, repetitive is callbacks are great. Callbacks are amazing because it helps you remember more, even as a listener.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I just want them to listen and remember what we spoke.
Right.
But this has to provocate them to actually dig deeper.
Yeah.
Right? I've showed you the door or I've showed you the scenery. Now you gotta click the picture and then develop it and make it a poster and put it up in your house. Right? And you will only do that if you really make out the difference. If you feel that, oh, this is exactly the same picture that I clicked somewhere else, then that might not happen.
Yeah.
Right? So that is why for me it was important to really get to those nuances and see how I can present it differently.
Now, finally, what I want to ask is for the last question.
For the 100th episode special.
Which is being recorded as the 99th episode.
And the 99th episode.
Yeah.
The last question for closing the recording.
You've done close to 100 episodes in English. You started a new podcast. So per week, you're putting out 2 episodes in different languages, different content. If there are budding podcasters who are listening to this, or anyone who wants to start on their own thing, you know, like any creative effort, whatever it might be, whatever medium.
Yeah.
What are the things that you've learned in this journey so far that you want to share with someone like that?
See, we did already get, the people did already write to us saying that they've started their own listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a fact. We have proof for that. And I think the biggest learning is like just consistency. It's an out there kind of a thing that it's like, you know, the theater thing. The more you're on stage, the better an actor you will become. Doesn't matter how much rehearsal you do.
Yeah.
You have to have that match practice. You have to have that stage presence for you to know. So it's the same thing even for a podcaster, right? You have to sit in front of the mic.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, shed that inhibition of listening to your own voice in the feedback. So if you start getting comfortable of listening to your own voice, is when you start becoming better speaker per se, or a free-flowing speaker per se.
Right.
Which is the core essence of any good podcast, where the more yourself you are while talking into a mic, the more authentic you sound.
Yeah. And that is such a truism, especially in the podcasting medium, because it is a long form content kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can fake and keep faking, you know, consistently.
On the long run.
Yeah, it will break. And the more you try to hold it up, the more stress and strain it will add to your head.
Yeah.
The best and the easiest way out of it is to just try and be as authentic as you can.
Right.
Because then you don't have to remember anything. You can just be
yourself.
yourself.
Like if you're drunk, speak drunk. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you're stoned, speak stoned. Doesn't matter. Don't think about, oh, it's not coming out polished. Or, I mean, you know, just make sure that it is sounding like a conversation for someone who's listening to you.
Yeah.
I mean, we have it easy, to be honest, because we too are there. Like, and we are having a conversation among ourselves.
Right.
But for someone who's trying to do a podcast alone, you know, sitting in a room, just looking at the mic, I think, and we did try doing solo episodes. You did more than me, but it's not going to be easy. And we know that because we've been tougher, on that side also.
Yeah.
But the trick is not that we are experts in doing it, but the trick we feel, at least from what I know, is you just have to make the mic your second skin. You know, at some point you should drop that inhibition of how do you think I sound? Does this look good? Are there better people who have better voices and all? Podcasters is not like singing. You don't need a great voice.
Yeah, that kind of insecurity.
It adds a little value, but
Yeah. That kind of insecurity it kind of, trickles up to imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is something that everybody has.
Yeah.
So it's not just going to be you thinking, am I good enough? Obviously, no, you're not good enough. There are better people.
Yeah.
There's always going to be better people.
Always going to be better people.
Yeah. So relax about that, I would suggest. And I would also suggest the burden of judgment, which is, am I really good?
Yeah.
I just recorded an episode and I put it out. Is that episode any good?
Yeah.
That burden of judgment is going to be very heavy, on our shoulders. So it is best to kind of surrender it to your audience. Let them decide.
Yeah, you delegate it to your audience.
Let them
it's not
decide.
even surrender. Yeah,
just surrender or sacrifice or whatever it is. Let them decide, whether you're good or not. You don't bother about that at all. I would suggest that if you're starting off, just bother about the effort you're putting in. Bother about the consistency, because
showing up in front of the mic every day or whenever.
Majority of the times you will not be in the mood.
Yeah.
And so pretty soon you'll have to learn, mood is a luxury.
Mood, it's not easy. There's so many moods.
Yeah. It's a great scene in Dune actually about mood, and we'll get to that in the Dune episode. But mood is like a luxury. Once you've made a commitment, and you've got to respect your own commitment. Once you've committed to your audience that, bro, every Tuesday I'm going to put out a new episode, then you've got to stick to it, because if you don't, then nobody else will come around. Nobody's going to hit follow.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to even bother, because they need to see, first of all, you doing it in action.
Correct.
So mood, set it aside. Imposter syndrome, set it aside. Just put your head down and do the work, as they say.
Yeah, it's a thankless job for initial time, but soon you'll enjoy it. And I think the most important thing is about the podcast recording, and this is my final point, Bogus.
Right.
I think is never show your face. Because when people start realizing that the voice doesn't match the face,
exactly,
that's a big turn off.
Yeah.
So never ever show your face till you're really confident that now they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
The biggest advice I can give.
Till the point you feel like, gotcha, and then gotcha, bitch, and then you can show your face as much as you want.
Even sometimes, even when you're sure, don't show. Don't show it even then. Fuck that shit.
All right. So as a cap off to the episode, Brute, I'll mention something you mentioned in the previous episode. If you guys have any ideas or requests for our 100th episode that you specifically want us to talk about in that, for sure, you can write to us. We're at Instagram at
@_ThyGap.
And our Twitter and Vero is
@ThyGap.
And our email is
mindthygap@gmail.com.
And that's it for this particular episode. It's not easy. 100 episodes. Like we always say, ThyGap Podcast, subscribe.
And share the bitch. Share it.
Share.